Hi, everybody. And I'm Gloria Mindock, one of the co-hosts. And the other host tonight is Harris Gardner. And welcome to the first and last word poetry series. And tonight we have a great program. I'm very excited. And our first reader is Doug Holder. Doug is the founder of Ibbetson Street Press. He's the former co-president of the New England Poetry Club. For 23 years, he ran the Newton Free Library Poetry Series. The Doug Holder Papers collection is housed at the University at Buffalo Libraries. Holder has taught writing at Bunker Hill Community College and is on the faculty of Endicott College. Holder has numerous collections out. His work has appeared in Rattle, Sahara Review, Pratik, the Boston Globe, and many other journals. He resides now in Revere, no more Somerville. Wah. Anyway, he resides with his cat Klezmer, and I give you Doug.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Harris and Gloria. So since I did move to Revere about 2 weeks ago, after spending many years in Somerville, I did write a poem about Revere, Slice of Life, Sketches of Shirley Avenue, which I live right off of Shirley Avenue in Revere. So here's the first poem. A young woman walks by pouting with eyelashes as big as tarantulas, her lips violently red, a frame for her shark white teeth. A man on the stoop pleads on his phone. You have to understand, now I have nothing. His bald head is barren as life. The high tops have seen their heights. I sit in the Valsos Cafe, the fans fighting with the humid air, my iced coffee with its drape of heavy cream. At the beach, a gull expertly beaks out the body of a clam. It is a shell of its former self. And since everything's disorganized in my home, I read some old poems. I can't find a lot of the new stuff I have. So here's one that I wrote many years ago. Boston Public Library, The Eccentrics of the Reading Room. I realize I'm becoming you, pausing to catch my breath near the sculpted Bacchante and baby, their arms raised to the marbled ceiling. Then through the entrance to the halls, she greets me, a ruin of gray matted hair, spouting the same 20-year-old polemic from the same long wooden table, more from affection now than anger. Then on the horizon, near the portals of the humanities desk, the familiar dowager's hump, fully realized, arcs under the reading lamp, the owner in quiet intimacy with her book, magnifying glass, resting on each word as if they were rare finds. In the middle of the room, a man in a used Chesterfield arranges his tobacco-stained debris of his pocket on a chair, fawning over the arcane contents like a deranged curator. I smile at the unsolicited advice of the genteel black man with the watch chain and Brooks Brothers suit as he walks the hall, nodding to us during his paternal vigil. I sat in my self-prescribed chair, arranging my papers precisely, noting the clock's hands ticking, oblivious to our mutterings, our late morning drone, and take my place. There's another one, a fortune cookie. The scene, a lone woman of a certain age. From behind the bleaking neon window, she gingerly handles the brittle shell of the cookie, breaking the surface with unwanted attention, unrolling the cheap paper scroll, perhaps she thinks with her characteristic smirk, a pearl thrown before the swine, a tawdry gem. Another cheap bone tossed away, the cloying sentiment, the commercial Confucianism. She pays her bill and meticulously folds a thin strip of paper, placing it delicately in her pocket. And another one called The Life of the Party. Even the sparkling wine seemed to wink seductively at you. After all, you were the center. The words fell like pearls from your mouth. The approving smiles from the woman, the perfect opiate, delightful, but never enough. And for this moment, you were a man among the men, above, out of reach from the subtext of their threats. You weave through the crowd like some sleek predatory cat. And then in the bathroom mirror, who is this imposter? Short and bald, struggling with his fly, his eyes red rimmed and bulging, staring at you in a comic assault with your pants down. You now remembered your place. And I wrote a sort of a stream of conscious memoir some time ago, different places in Boston in the 70s that I frequented and things like that. And some of you will remember Ken's Deli in Copley Square. Copley Square, midnight, is sort of a stream of consciousness. Copley Square, midnight, slipped into Ken's Deli, a Jackie Galicianist fat man, the manager, stationed by the rotisserie chickens, a chorus line of spread wings, melting flesh, wings posturing on their plump hips, wondering which one I would choose. A dishwasher emerged, a feminine man, dirty apron, a cigarette in a holder, long, expressive hands wearing an eye patch. Drag queens in the men's room. At the counter on the first floor, a waitress, not long on patience, piped, "What's it going to be, hon?" Actors off from the gig at the Colonial, gesturing at each other dramatically at the booths. A few years ago, I was a dishwasher here. I was chosen from a lineup of world-weary men. You, and you at 5 p.m., carrying all this through stacks of dishes. All this would be mine one day, a late-night character, laughing over corned beef and chopped liver on dark rye with poets and writers. After a day of writing, joking like Dorothy Parker, my round table, my Algonquin hotel, the men I worked with, I knew would reappear again, even then taking mental notes, trying to construct a narrative of the chaos of my life. And this is at Solomon Carter Fuller. It was a mental hospital. I worked in the South End of Boston. Taught Black history in the South End Solomon Carter Fuller Mental Health Center. A Jewish boy from Long Island. They called me homie. I thought homely. They said my sorry, sagging ass looked like it had a ton of bricks resting on it. Never thought about this. I made clandestine trips to the men's room with a hand mirror to check on my ass. They were right. We took them to the pool on the lower floor. One boy swam with a finger in his ear, a phone conversation with the voices in the head. They were pleasant. The boy had a wild, resplendent smile. Walking down Harrison Avenue, past Chico's bodega, bags of pork rinds in the window, lottery ticket addicts mulling around. The usual drunk sprawled out on the awning down from Boone's Farm or Muscatel. Walking down this past a shanty lounge, had dinner at Smarrow with my friend Tesfaye. Large Ethiopian flatbreads with their exotic droppings of meat and vegetables. He spoke of revolution, handsome, professional beard, soft-spoken, seemed to ponder each word I said, a minister now, back in Africa. This is when I worked for many years on the psychiatric ward of McLean Hospital. At night, you check the rooms. The flashlight discovers these animals attached to grown women, like suckling babes held tightly against the darkness. Memories of morning abandonment, the deep chasm that were never bridged. On these lonely nights, any union will do. And anyway, this one was dedicated to Lloyd because he was telling me about the Jewish theatrical cemeteries in New York. So I wrote this one, imagining Hamlet at the Yiddish Theater, which was a very interactive theater, and people would talk with the actors and all that stuff. Sometimes they just want to yell at him, this poor man Lawrence's Olivier, get a job through his thick existential fog. Such soreness, enough already as his dramatic angst, at his dramatic angst. You think you had it hard, to be or not to be, if that is the question. They make a decision, they say with derision. A father might have yelled his mind to me, you'll be a drifter, a Luftmensch. Well, at least I'd be free. Some mother might have espoused a maternal cliche. You are 30 years old, you have your whole life ahead of you. And this Yiddish Hamlet might retort, and that's the problem. My whole life is ahead of me. When it is all left, all over, then the fat lady sings and sings. House dust. At night, I shed my dead skin cells. In the morning, in the mirror, I say a Kaddish for their dust. Dust floats in my home, bombs of pollen on the promise of a fragrant spring air. I try to sweep it all under the tatters of a Persian rug, but it spindles around an old forlorn chair, always looking for a grave. At times I see a shaft of afternoon light, the dust a funnel of flowing detritus, streaming to the heavens. God's hands are full of dust. And one more. My father was a PR man. I have a number of pictures of him with different personalities in New York he knew and was promoting or whatever. My father with Jack Dempsey. On my table is a picture of my father with Jack Dempsey outside the Brill Building in New York City. Dad's narrow black tie, his jet black hair tamed by an oil slick of Vitalis. His left hand clenched in a fish, a pugilist meeting another pugilist. Dempsey pretends to yell something in my dad's ear, like Ali to Cosell, a graceful athlete to the Jewish Ed Sullivan posture of my PR man father. My father didn't seem to be living in the moment. He was always not here and nowhere. Now he's frozen in a frame. I will never understand him, he said. He didn't understand me. Now we just stare at each other wordless, desperate to connect. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. That was a nice group. Our next featured reader, George Kalogeris. In his most recent book of poems is Winthropos. His new book, Greek School, is forthcoming from LSU Press in March of 2027. His poems and translations have been anthologized in Joining Music with Reason, chosen by Christopher Ricks in Waywiser 2010. I give you George Kalogeris.
Thank you so much, Harris. Thank you, Gloria. And I'm delighted to be reading with two dear friends, and Doug and Lloyd. Butterflies. Let me just note the time. Butterflies. Petaluda, my grandmother whispered to me. That time she saw one alight on her flower pots, and said it as if the lovely word itself had just touched down on the flower petal's tongue. And then there's the other kind of butterflies, that flutter in the gut that everyone gets, when all our free-floating eagerness and dread on certain occasions is suddenly palpable. That heightened sense of awareness, or so it seems, whenever my hands are itching to write a poem, something true to the sound of Petaluda, but never any closer to that winged word than the shade of the hedge when the caterpillar, cupped in my palms, extended its tiny feelers. The next poem is called In Praise of My Brother, and it's after Zimborska, only in that she has a poem in praise of my sister. So in praise of my brother. My brother doesn't write poems and doesn't read them either, except for mine, which he always says he really likes, but doesn't always get. My brother's a physical therapist. Helping bodies in pain is his specialty. His supple hands are strong and knowledgeable. He has his own practice. My brother's wife, too, does not write poems, but she's an excellent cook of Greek cuisine, and they delight in hosting our family gatherings. Our parents worked way too hard to ever dream of writing poems. Instead, they sang to each other the beautiful lyrics of their village songs. But it's their prosaic refrain, Ella, Yorgo, how will you ever make a living and raise a family, that keeps coming back to me. Oh, priceless, extravagant, lyrical life of the mind. But lucky the writer whose brother is good at making sound investments and gives his advice for free. My brother doesn't write poems, and yet whenever I visit his house and sit at the family table of living memory, I feast on the voices. It was after a reading, the poet Jonathan Abel came up to me and said, I know your brother. He brought the feeling back to my right hand. I think it's almost about 25 years ago that with the help of some Russian students, I translated this poem by Mandelstam. And I'd like to read it now because I think it's more relevant than ever. It's called As I Was Washing Myself in the Dark. As I was washing myself in the dark, washing outside where the ice-cold water kept spilling over the rim of the barrel, the evening stars against the horizon glistened like salt on the blade of an axe. As I was washing myself in the dark, I saw the locked gate that couldn't keep out the menacing look of my surroundings once it had entered my state of mind. Soon the weavers will weave a new pattern from anything they can get their hands on, looming there in the near future. No matter what fabric they happen to stitch, I don't think the seams will ever be finer than a single line of honest speech. Salt of the earth and stars of the sky, dissolving now in the water's reflection. This briny water that keeps turning blacker, like some purer shade of appalling death, as if our lips had already tasted what's steeped in the salt of worsening luck. As I was washing myself in the dark, washing outside where the ice-cold water kept spilling over the rim of the barrel, the earth edged closer to truth and terror. It appears that this poem Mandelstam wrote while he was in one of the Soviet work camps. Eventually he died in a work camp. Both Lloyd and Doug, I've always admired their writing about affliction, people suffering, fellow suffering creatures. So I'd like to read this poem about my mother's struggle with Alzheimer's, and it's called Hippocampus. Ancient Greek for seahorse, but now it stands for the S-shaped creature that swims so deep inside the coral reef of our brain, the hippocampus, locus of all our appetites and desires, but also the seahorse that rears its bewildered head when Alzheimer's first emerges. That limbic lobe, shaped like an S and as curvy as the road that hugs the coast of Winthrop, Revere, and Lynn. A longer, circuitous route my mother took one summer day to meet her friends for lunch at the Porthole pub. For almost 30 years, their Tuesday routine, with Betty Castanotis arriving first to save their favorite booth. No wonder I'm puzzled when I'm told about Revere Beach and the bumper-to-bumper traffic. But don't you always take the back roads, Ma? And that's when the ancient seahorse rose to the surface and spoke so earnestly about the ocean and how, by following the shoreline, she wouldn't get lost. And Doug is right along that shoreline. I'd like to read a poem in homage to Edward Thomas. Thomas was a British poet who died really close to the end of the First World War. And he has a poem called Rain that I've always loved. So this is an homage to Thomas. Rain. It was pain, midnight pain, nothing but the wild pain he heard, as if his prayer could channel the rain, falling to tell him that someone was dying alone, lying out there with others, drenched to the bone, helpless as broken reeds in the cold, cold water. Answer me if you can. Does the rain have a father? Said the whirlwind to Job as he lay in the terminal ward or out in the trenches. It's what the poet heard, lashing the roof of his hut as the sound of sheer dissolution kept his body awake to the pure isolation of all those in pain, midnight pain, and nothing but wild, flawless lines to the wild, falling rain that calls itself catharsis. O tender Edward Thomas. There are three Greek vases, ancient vases, that have this very peculiar image of the chariot of Helios, the chariot of the sun, and it's descending into Hades. Now, Hades is the ancient Greek mythical world was a place of total darkness, no light, no language, place of dirt and dust, nothing like the Mediterranean. And it's very peculiar to think of that chariot heading that way. So I'll read this one and one more. This one's called Insomnia. The chariot of Helios is in Hades. Over the backs of the horses flow their long, luxuriant manes. Into the on and on and on of the dark, their arching necks must strain against the yoke that keeps them from turning back. The chariot of Helios is in Hades. Who hasn't felt the pull of its shimmering reins as the light descends, or heard the hooves that keep the racing heart awake long after midnight? The chariot of Helios is in Hades. Repeat it like a mantra you learned from a myth engraved on ancient Greek funereal urns. All night, the golden wheels of the golden car keep turning, as over and over they try to tell us what only time can tell when dawn returns. Your love for your dead will never relax its grip. But one day the grief will finally start to fade. The chariot of Helios is in Hades. I started off with a childhood poem, and I'll finish with a poem from childhood. This is called Thales. Not the pre-Socratic philosopher who said the world is made of water, but my pet chameleon who spent his days in a dry aquarium. His fluency was such that whether I lifted him out or put him back in, his skin would match the back of my hand. That metaphysical lizard from magical childhood, whose only unchanging parts were the pink tongue and the pink palate of his open mouth, his rational mouth that never uttered a sound or altered its color inside. As if my mottled master of camouflage refused to hide what looked like an open wound that opened afresh each time he bowed his sleek, elongated head to the brimming little tin I set down for him in his beach sand desert. It wasn't Thales who told me the world was made of water. It was that even more ancient one, whose wrinkled eyelids never widened in fear or shed a single tear. And me, agog against the aquarium glass, as all alone he drank from his trough. Thank you.
Lloyd Schwartz is poet laureate of Somerville. He's the editor of Elizabeth Bishop and critic for NPR's Fresh Air. He's received the Pulitzer Prize for criticism and the NEA, Guggenheim Foundation, and Academy of American Poets fellowships in poetry. His latest book is Ater Shinabo and Joseph Szigeti, Play Mozart, Other Frick Collection, April 4th, 1948, and other poems. I give you Lloyd Schwartz.
Thank you. Thank you, Harris. Thank you, Gloria, for inviting me. And it's just great to read with George and Doug, two wonderful poets who are also great citizens of poetry in our community. And thank you, everyone else, for attending the reading today. I'm going to read 4 poems, and what they have in common is that they're each about couples. And the first one is it's the title poem of this new chapbook. He tells his mother what he's working on. I'm writing a poem about you. You are? What's it about? It's the story about your childhood, the horses in the river. The ones that nearly drowned, I saved them. You told it to me just a few weeks ago. I should dig up more of my memories. I wish you would. Like when I lived on the farm and one of the girls fell down the well? Yes. I forget if it was Rose or Pauline. It was a deep well. I remember that story. Have you finished your poem? I'm still working on it. You mean you're correcting it with commas and semicolons? Exactly. When can I see it? As soon as it's finished. Is it an epic? It's not that long. No, I mean, all of my thoughts, the flashes of what's going through my life, the whole family history, living through the woe, the river and the water. I know. Will it be published? I have to finish it first. It's better to write about real life. That's more important than writing something fanciful. I try to write all my poems about real life. You see, the apple never falls far from the tree. I guess not. You're my apple. There's probably a worm crawling through that apple. Then it's got something sweet to chew on. Well, you're my tree. Yes, I'm your tree. You're an apple. I'm a tree. This is called Friendships and Time. My new friend is away for the weekend. The weekend drags by. I want to know exactly what he's doing. Is the convention exciting? Who are the new people? Is Atlanta as pretty as they say? I'm eager to hear all about it. What's he doing now? The weekend drags by. My best friend has just left for Europe. I'm snowed under. There's gossip and a question he'll know the answer to. I think of phoning, then remember he's away. It can wait. In the meantime, I teach, work on an article, go to a concert. Time flies. A friend is dead. Weeks might pass without a word before one of us called. Months might pass without our meeting, and at gatherings we might talk only in passing. Still, we loved to talk and always looked forward to meeting. Months have passed. One day passes like the rest. I'm visiting friends in a distant city. It's as if we'd never been apart. My lover stays home. We miss each other, but time seems suspended. My vacation of parties and sightseeing could go on forever. When I get back, it will seem as if I'd never been away. And this is a poem. It's about it's actually about a painting by Vermeer that's in the Frick collection. And it's called Officer and Laughing Girl. Excuse me. Who is this man? I can barely make out his face in the window glare. A fierce silhouette, the glowing edge of his floppy, broad-brimmed hat, the devil with a halo. His red jacket is on fire, an assault of maleness, a mystery. Does he see my terror? Or is he staring at the map on the wall behind me, or out the open window, his impatient hand on his hip, even sitting down? What does he keep staring at? What makes him stay? Why doesn't she just drink her wine and relax? She looks like she's about to cry. I can see the tears welling up. But no, her eye is clear. her hands on the table around her glass, palms up, ready to take whatever is given. What do I have to give? I could travel past the edge of the known world and never find a pearl worthy of this smile that sees right through me, sees my darkness, yet doesn't cease to smile. And the last poem is a little longer, and it's about a couple, but about a musical couple. Arthur Schnabel and Joseph Szigeti play Mozart at the Frick Collection, April 4th, 1948. Two of the greatest musicians who ever lived couldn't record together. They worked for competing companies, but they admired each other and occasionally played together in public. One concert took place at the Frick Collection, the most refined museum in New York. Just outside the concert room hang some of the masterpieces of Western art: Bellini's St. Francis, Rembrandt's self-portrait, Titian's a Velázquez, 3 Vermeers. It seems right. That concert must have been broadcast on the radio. Someone must have recorded it. I didn't know it existed until a friend surprised me with a copy for my birthday, one of my most cherished gifts. The greatest pianist and the greatest violinist of the century. I had never heard them perform together. I couldn't imagine it. Schnabel's uncanny delicacy, his sense of tragedy, a trill that suddenly sees into the abyss. Szigeti's visceral touch, his heartbreaking soulfulness, his speaking inflections. Could they really play together? If anything, they are more intimately responsive to each other's odd, individual voice, than almost any other musical collaborators I've ever heard. Ella and Louis, her heavenly sweetness, his earthy growl, more immediately, intuitively responsive to each other than almost any pair of musicians I've ever heard. Mozart's Sonata in E flat, K 481, as it's usually referred to, one of the wondrous later pieces he wrote in Vienna. He was nearly 30. In less than 6 years, he'd be dead. He was one of the inventors, one of the masters of the kind of music making in which the players are equal partners, not just a soloist with an accompanist, collaborators, conspirators. In K481, the players are equals, not identical, but equal, a partnership in which both partners can maintain their own personality, their own individuality, not identical, but equal. Schnabel begins with an enunciation, 3 firm notes. Then Szigeti puts the period on Schnabel's brief sentence. Or is it an exclamation point? Then Schnabel relaxes, almost whistling a little tune. Szigeti gives him room. Szigeti softens too. Their first moment of equal tenderness, not exactly toward each other, but a sudden, easy acceptance of the possibility of goodness, of kindness in the world. They're mutually content, in accord. They share their accord. In the slow movement, Schnabel is singing a lullaby. Or is it a love duet, lovers parting? And Szigeti is humming along. Then suddenly it's the violin singing, a quiet lament. Szigeti trying to hide at least some part of his grief, while Schnabel insists, gently insists, on getting past this. When the opening melody returns, Schnabel incorporates Szigeti's lament, and Szigeti extends his. Near the end of the movement, the violin suddenly, urgently, leaps into another register, another world, as if staying on the earth were just too hard. In fact, intolerable. Schnabel's piano flutters in agitation, then resigns itself to allow Szigeti to pour his heart out. Schnabel lets him, waiting for Szigeti to return to the ground, which he finally, though with some apparent reluctance, does. And once again, they are both part of the same world, where crying out against grief and accepting it are inseparable. Can there be a happy ending? Szigeti, maybe reluctantly, seems finally to have passed through lament into something close to joy, bringing Schnabel along with him. Or is this joy exactly where Schnabel was heading from the very beginning? They are soon not just resigned, but happy, equally, if not identically, happy, increasingly exuberant, playful, teasing, increasingly a couple. Is that a tear about to fall? Whose? But no, they continue their game. Yes, they say. Yes, we're all right. It's all right. Mozart says it's all right. Mozart says yes. In a concert at the Frick Collection in 1948, Arthur Schnabel and Joseph Szigeti played Mozart's Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lloyd. That was wonderful. What a great night for poetry, really.
Thank you. Yeah.
So next, we have our open mic, and we have room for 5 spots. I already have 4 people signed up who are Alston, Tim, Pui, and Andrea. So we have room for one more. Is there somebody else? Okay, Stephen. Let me write you down. And then Harris will close us out. And the only rule we have is that it's 1 page, no more than 1 poem. And we'll start out with Alston.
Thank you, Gloria and Harris. This is a new poem of mine. It's entitled Dealing with God. I hope to God I never have another stroke. Sharp slamming of a screen door at summer's height, rattling of wood and mesh, setting all manner of life a tremble, dullard mosquitoes and lightning bugs alike, the message from the sweltering astral treetops being crystalline blue. All right, solstice man, you down there in the rusty doorway, all holy, afeared, hollow, show me what you got. Tell me, please, how much soul you will lend, and if it be hard cash or revolving credit. This offer valid a half second only. Thank you.
Thank you, Alston.
Thank
And
you.
our next reader is Tim Sermont. So Tim, while you fix it, we'll go to Pui.
Yeah. So, okay, so yeah. Thank you, everyone. I have this recent poem for you. It's titled Corridor. This door opens to another door, a game of endless mirrors, seeking for the sake of seeking, an eternal adventure, now departing, now returning. A woman so young, already in an autumn coat, color of sage, the old country, the back story, looking at me, looking at her. Whose life are we reflecting? Is she me, my mother? Then upon which I will keep the dream. Dawn is here, but you are not. In the silence, somebody said, "What does it matter? The cold wind in the corridor is through."
Thank you, Pui. Tim, can we try you again? Nope, you're still no sound.
Gloria, Keith had his hand up trying to get your attention for a reading. Maybe he could read while Tim is getting set up.
Sure. And then we'll go to Andrea after him. So go ahead, Keith.
Uh, Thank you, and thanks to the readers. And this is also thanks to Doug. This is a poem from last year that was in his lyrical Somerville column, and I thank him for that. I've been reading it to certain passersby on the way to work. Canine Communications. A human and his shepherd, German or otherwise, proceeded slowly up the sidewalk, the one having to pause and stand around, while the other lifted a leg to water that bush or that pole, even a fire hydrant. Another pair came running up the other side of the street, and that dog barked a greeting. "My human's in a hurry. I can't stop now for a sniff and chat. So further up the block at the next tree, P-mail me."
Thanks, Keith. And Andrea, will you go next?
Yes. Thank you. This has been wonderful. Great readings. The weather. The news is bleak. Chaos ensues. No grounding in decency. I want to return to stability, back to innocence, kindness. Some are so attuned to the weather, which does not care about us. Rain pays no attention to weddings, picnics, food crops, and thirst. Snow has no concern for hikers, skiers, dangerously stranded, skiing a mountain or not. The wind feels no guilt for its role in spreading wildfires, no obligation to send rain in remediation, nor create a breeze during hot times. We hold such expectations and hopes for the rain, the sun, all the elements, wishing they knew their impact, wanting them to care, expecting their wisdom, as we do for those who lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And it's good to hear you at the open mic. So yay. And Harris, will you close us out with a poem? Oh, I forgot. Wait, I forgot Stephen. Stephen, I'm so sorry. It's one of those nights, I guess. So go ahead, Stephen, and then Harris will close us out.
No worries. So I'm doing a series on unrequited love, and this is a new poem. It's called "Give Me a Hand." Rain has its patterns: drum rolls, torrents, tentative tinkles, windswept deluge. Tides are more fickle, with infinite varieties of flow, clacking pebbles on the littoral, crashing into cliffs where the sand gives out. People too have signatures. Some have patterns you can finesse. Some are rain-tossed or ocean-blown, and thus deserving of our mistrust. What are you? I asked in innocence. Eyebrows raised, lips compressed, you chastened me. For my inquiry, one does not ask such things, you hissed. I am rain-soaked, tide-dragged, ground to sand along your shore, storm-blown and finessed. You ignore my searching for an outstretched hand.
Thanks, Stephen. And Harris, now you can close us out.
All right. This poem is called Remember the Tower. The Lord is my mentor, and I shall not waver from faith or focus, though other gods and those who would be rise among us. I shall be aware but will not fear what AI can do to me. Data is corralled to maintain and sustain all of creation's current and archival knowledge. We are the universal college, they say. The goal to advance heaven's original design. Is the plan diabolical or is it divine? Billions for machines, farthings for food, a passion for greed or for the greater good. Folks fed flames to destroy ancient wisdom. Much survived despite conflagrations. What will be salvaged from future infernos? Gather ye technos while ye may. Set strong guardrails lest they become lord and master. Evolving novi mortales, new sentient beings, a computer chip implanted in the brain, boon or disaster. Dr. Frankenstein's unearthly collage emulating. With all these mavens, will we inherit the empyrean, our dust gestating, or is it a whirlwind awaiting? Let us pray that they do not delete the memory of that Confutio linguarum, that shattered belfry. Anyway, I think you know what that was about. So, shall I close out the evening with a lot of thank yous? Thank you to our three featured poets, the wonderful, wonderful poetry tonight. Doug Holder, George Kalogeris, and Lloyd Schwartz. And thank you all to the wonderful readers on the open mic. Thank you to my co-host, Gloria, who keeps us all moving, and both technically and with her wonderful, charming personality. And I'm waiting for her to read one of her poems, at least on the open mic. I know she's featured. Anyway, so thank you all. It's been a wonderful, wonderful evening of poetry and camaraderie. And I shall say again to all a good night.